Hey guys, it's Alex from 7th Hour Films, and today I'm going to be reviewing Season 3 of Gotham. Now, a bit of an interesting thing. I kind of already did a video on Gotham earlier in the year. The video is called The Current State of Gotham, where it was about the midway point of Season 3, and I just kind of rambled on. It's even called a ramble in the video title. And I've basically reviewed kind of the season up to that point and kind of where I wanted the series to go. So this is kind of a continuation of that, despite me not actually remembering some of the things I said in there. I think I remember the gist of it, and so we're just going to I'll give a brief recap of pretty much the beginning half of Season 3, and then we're going to talk about that and a lot of the second half of Season 3. So, yeah. So, first half of Season 3, we started with the Mad Hatter as the villain, which was kind of interesting. I've never really seen the Mad Hatter in anything. I knew he was a Batman villain, but it was interesting. We kind of... I don't know how I can really describe this, but it's interesting that basically, despite the Mad Hatter not being the main villain of Season 3, he does sort of give the season its arc. Like, basically the entire arc of Season 3 revolves around the Alice Tetch virus. And so, in a way, it kind of revolves around Jervis Tetch, the Mad Hatter, and kind of the repercussions throughout the rest of the season. So, the Mad Hatter, I actually kind of liked him. He kind of overstayed his welcome, but I thought he was interesting and a new, fun villain. I don't really remember what happened immediately after him. I don't fully remember, but I don't remember hating anything in this season. That's the thing. Well, there's one thing I hate, but we'll get to that in a moment. Then, kind of in the middle of the season, we had a 3-part kind of mini-arc, which involved Jerome, who we're all hoping is going to be the Joker. And it was great. I talked about that in my other video. It was a great 3-part mini-arc, and I thought Jerome was an amazing villain. Now, that kind of brings us to where we are now, with the second half of Season 3, basically. This is interesting because there's not really there's kind of a main villain, but at the same time there's not. Now we're dealing with the Court of Owls, and it's really interesting. The Court of Owls is in Gotham to basically destroy Gotham because its time has come. See, in all these things where, in all these Batman things, like in Batman Begins, when Ra's al Ghul wants to destroy Gotham, I never really understood why specifically Gotham. And even in the show Gotham, I don't get the reason why they singled out this city. But whatever. So the plan for the Court of Owls is to unleash the Alice Tetch virus and basically make everyone go crazy and annihilate each other. And so through all of that, we have interesting conflict because basically the only way for the GCPD to understand anything about the Court of Owls is they actually send in Jim Gordon undercover in the court, which is pretty cool. At the same time, Edward Nygma has really started to become his own... He's really... I don't really know how to say this, but coming to his own as the Riddler. He even calls himself the Riddler, which is good. And he starts doing Riddler-y things. He doesn't have a lot of time to be Riddler-ish, and judging by the season finale, he's not going to have a lot of time to do Riddler things. But it is interesting, his conflicts after killing the Penguin. Probably at the beginning of this video, there was a spoiler warning, so I'm just going to reinforce that here. Spoilers for Gotham Season 3. Penguin isn't actually killed, he survives because he's found by Poison Ivy. And now it's a real war between Penguin and the Riddler. Meanwhile, Barbara Keene is in the middle of all this, and she wants to become basically the queen of Gotham's underworld, which I didn't really care about because I don't like Barbara as a character, and I'm really happy that she was killed off in the finale. So, kind of going back to the Court of Owls, the Court of Owls is actually dispatched with 4 episodes before the finale, which is really interesting because they're still sort of the overarching villains in this second half, but they're all taken out. It's just that they have lasting effects. So basically, the court, sort of not the leader of the court, but one of the higher ups in the court is killed. And then the actual head of the Court of Owls kills everyone else in the court because he's done with the court, which is interesting. And you actually learn that there's basically this giant hierarchy of the people who actually control Gotham. And so it kind of started with Wayne Enterprises. Wayne Enterprises is kind of at the bottom, but Wayne is being controlled by the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is being controlled by this guy we only know as Sensei. And Sensei actually has his own master, and again, spoiler alert, just so you know, but because Sensei is killed, actually by Alfred after, and I'll mention this in a moment, but he's been sort of brainwashing Bruce Wayne, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the Sensei's master is actually Ra's al Ghul, which is really interesting. And that, we finally know that Ra's is the highest point in this sort of chain of command in Gotham City. Which is kind of interesting. Because I think it would have been interesting. I obviously don't want Barbara to come back, but this whole time she's been wanting to know who actually controls Gotham. And I think it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting to see her get killed by Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul, who looks amazing in this. I like Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul in the Dark Knight trilogy, and I liked Matt Nable as Ra's in Arrow. I think they're both fantastic, and I really like them. This time, in Gotham, they brought in Alexander Siddig, who played Dr. Bashir in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That's where I know him from. And so it's interesting, when you actually look at him, he really does look like Ra's al Ghul. Because, they got, the hairstyle right, and the mustache, and sort of the goatee that Ra's has. And he does look, Middle Eastern, which is what Ra's is supposed to look like. So that's pretty great. I can't wait to see more of him in Season 4. He kind of only has a cameo in the end of Season 3, which is fine. I understand they're probably setting up for Season 4, which is fine. I said I would talk about Bruce Wayne, and now I will. So Bruce is basically taken, actually at the end of the Jerome arc. He's actually taken... Oh wait, was it the end of the Jerome arc? Actually it wasn't, now that I think about it. Bruce Wayne is actually taken by the Court of Owls towards the beginning of the second half of Season 3. So at the beginning of the arc of the Court of Owls, he's taken by the court. and he's basically given to the care of the sensei, and the sensei is basically saying, I can make you sort of a hero for Gotham, which is interesting, because obviously it's Gotham, it's Bruce Wayne, you know he's going to become Batman, but it's interesting how they're playing with how he's going to become Batman. Am I in an angle? I just realized. Well, it doesn't look too off-center, but whatever. Like, I just noticed that, and I was like, ah, crap, I hope that's not too bad, but I don't think so. Whew. I actually need some water. Ooh. I got thirsty talking about Gotham. Alright. Anyway, so Bruce Wayne is basically given to the care of the sensei, who's saying, you know, you can become, you know, a hero for Gotham. But obviously it's a hero that he wants him to be, that the court wants him to be. Not exactly the hero that Batman generally is. So that's interesting. And he actually does, like, somewhat acupuncture stuff. He kind of just keeps poking him, like, right here with a needle. And he keeps getting these visions. And eventually he locks away his pain of losing his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne. And so he kind of, I guess, what's the phrase? Drinks the Kool-Aid, is that it? He basically is kind of put under a spell, and he really thinks that, yes, he should go with the Court of Owls, and eventually when the sensei's like, no, forget the Court of Owls, you're gonna be with me and not the court, and he's like, alright, I guess I'll just hang out with you. And so it's very interesting to see, because it kind of takes away, like, because obviously he took away the pain, but he didn't take away, or he did take away, like, a lot of the emotion, which was interesting. And so now we have this thing where Alfred is trying to get Bruce back to the way he was, and Bruce is kind of struggling with, well, should I go back to Alfred, or should I stay with this guy who took my pain away? And that kind of all comes to a head when Bruce Wayne meets Raish. Because basically, because the sensei died, the sensei, just before he died, said, you know, find the demon's head. And a lot of us know that's Ra's al Ghul. Raish. I'm trying to get used to saying Raish. Ra's is a little easier to say, but whatever. As far as we know on Gotham, they're saying Raish. We've only heard it said once, and that was by Raish himself. So basically, Bruce finds Raish, and Alfred follows Bruce, and the League captures Alfred, brings Alfred before Bruce and Raish says, basically holds out a sword and says, alright, kill him. If you really want to, you know, achieve your destiny and to, you know, become my apprentice and my heir, you have to kill him. And Alfred is even saying, like, okay, because this is like his last ditch effort to try to get through to Bruce. But he tells him the story of when when Bruce first came home after being born, and Alfred knew that he would do anything for Bruce, and he says, alright, if you need to do this, do it. And sure enough, Bruce actually stabs Alfred right through the heart, which is very interesting. And just before that, I'm thinking, alright, what are we going to do here? This is a very interesting take on this, because in Batman Begins, you know, Bruce just finds Ducard, and they just train, and then it turns out Ducard is Ra's al Ghul in is how they say it there. He turns out to be Ra's al Ghul, and then is a villain for Batman. This time, Ra's is basically introduced early, and Bruce is not in the right headspace. He's not himself, basically. He's not actually willingly being trained. He's not willingly going with Ra's. He's still under the mind control. But the interesting thing about that is that once he stabs Alfred, whatever the sensei did to him actually wears off, which is really cool. So now he's in the right headspace, and he's like, oh crap, I just stabbed Alfred through the heart. Now what? He can't believe that he just did that. And Ra's, this is where sort of the interesting thing about Ra's comes in, is that Ra's actually says, Bruce, use the water. And because there's a giant pit, we know that to be the Lazarus Pit, all us comic book fans, or Arrow fans, if you're aware of Arrow. Bruce scoops up some water in a bowl, and pours it over Alfred's stab wound, and it heals. It actually does heal. He's not fully healed, but it does kind of correct the stab wound, which is pretty interesting. And so the interesting thing about that is that, I don't know, it's like, because you would think that Ra's would just be like, alright, you're mind controlled, now let's go. You've let go of your past, let's move on. But that's sort of the typical villain response. But he doesn't do that. He says, no, you can heal him. Once he's in a clear head, he's like, no, use the water to heal him. Which is interesting. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't entirely know what to make of it, actually. But it is really, really interesting. So yeah, that's kind of going on. Meanwhile, I'm going to try to wrap this up really quickly because I noticed on my timer it says 18 minutes. So I need to wrap this up pretty quickly. I didn't intend to talk this long. So basically, while this is all happening, the Tetch virus is still loose. And the Tetch virus is like spread pretty far through Gotham, and all these people are now crazy because they're infected. Jim is also infected. Jim Gordon's also infected, not because of the bomb, the Tetch virus bomb thing, but actually because Lee is actually his ex-girlfriend is actually infected too. She infected herself. There's a long story with her ex-husband and the virus, which I'm not going to go into right now. But she basically infects herself, and she wants Jim to be infected. Jim basically has no choice in the matter, because he's like buried like 6 feet underground, and the only way he'll be able to like push through the ground to get out is if he has the strength of the virus. So yeah, so for a couple episodes here, we actually have Jim Gordon infected with the virus, and it's it is interesting to see. But eventually he does, he gets the antidote, and the antidote starts being treated throughout Gotham and stuff. And it's interesting. I don't know, because I don't really know what to say about it, because, excuse me, jeez, I'm sorry. I don't really know what to think about it. I mean, it is good writing, and there's a lot of conflict between Jim and Lee with the virus, and like basically Jim is torn between the virus and Lee, and between not having the virus and Harvey, basically. So he has to make the choice. Does he fully embrace the virus and be with Lee, or does he try to get rid of the virus in both him and Lee, and and really just stay true to being a cop, like Harvey. And Harvey is sort of the voice of reason there, whereas Lee is the voice of reason on the other side. So that's all kind of interesting. But, I mean, it's interesting that there's not really a villain in the last couple episodes. It's just something is happening and they're dealing with the thing that's happening, which is very interesting for the end of the season. As for like a couple things I said in my ramble, Barbara is dead, which is good. I hated Barbara. Now Tabitha is not dead. I may have said that in my ramble. Tabitha Gallivan is not dead, but as soon as she wasn't with Barbara, I was just kind of more interested. I was like, oh, well, maybe this will be alright. Like, maybe the problem was just Barbara all along. I don't fully remember what else I said, but the big thing is that pretty much the last scene of the finale is a street mugging. This family, they look a lot like the Waynes, but they have a daughter. They're getting mugged, and just before anyone is killed or anything, a guy in a mask and like a trench coat comes in and beats up the mugger, and then climbs up onto a roof of a building, takes off the mask, and it's Bruce Wayne. Because he was told by Alfred that he really needs to find his own way. He needs to find his north and then follow that. And so he needs to find his calling. And so now we see Bruce is now a vigilante, and this is how he's starting to become Batman. So it'll be really interesting to see where it goes from here. I don't think at the beginning of Season 4 he's just going to be Batman. I think he's still just going to be a vigilante for a while, and maybe throughout Season 4 is when he starts like building up the Batman. Maybe it just starts with the name, and he slowly starts to get like the gadgets and the suit and everything, to where maybe the back half of Season 4 he will be Batman. That would be interesting to see. Because actually, and I know he's a teenager, so it would be interesting to have like a Bat teen, but excuse me, my voice is getting a little raspy, but the interesting thing about that is when he was actually beating up the mugger, he seemed tall. I mean, this kid is actually getting tall, and I know his voice still sounds very youthful. If he talked like that as Batman, that wouldn't work, but maybe this is how he starts, he thinks, okay, maybe I need a voice changer or something like that. So it's I think it'll be very interesting to see where Bruce is going in this, because honestly, we haven't really gotten something like this. We've always seen Batman when he is just either he's training or he just is Batman. We don't really see that beginning process of him becoming Batman. Or at the very least, occasionally you'll see that with, you may have seen that a little bit in Batman Begins, or like in Batman Mask of the Phantasm, the animated movie. You saw a little bit of him just being a vigilante before he really became Batman. But to have a whole show where basically you could go with 22 episodes, you can go in depth of how he really becomes Batman. That's really awesome. So yeah, overall for Season 3 of Gotham, I loved it. I thought it was really great. Obviously I did have some problems with it. I had a problem with a lot of the Penguin Riddler story, but that got fixed really quickly. And I just hated Barbara, but that's fixed now. So yeah, I am looking forward to Season 4, and yeah, that is pretty much it. End cards are going to pop up right about now. You can click on those. You can follow 7th Hour Films on Twitter at 7th Hour Films, and that is pretty much it. I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.